I'm Cindy Maka, the museum director. Today's private tour features docent Joe Provenzano, highly accomplished expert in aircraft instrumentation and electronics.
Hi, I'm Joe Provenzano. I'm a docent here at the Western Museum of Flight at Zamperini Field in Torrance. I've been a docent here about 3 years, and I was an engineer in aerospace for 45 years at a couple of different companies, mostly TRW before it was purchased by Northrop Grumman. Anyway, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Goodyear Blimps. We were very fortunate to get bits and pieces of the Spirit of Innovation Goodyear Blimp that was stationed out at Carson when Goodyear decided to replace all their blimps with Zeppelin NT airships. Now, they still call them blimps because it's too hard to say Zeppelin NT rigid airship. It's easier to say blimp. But there's a big difference between a blimp and an airship. One thing is size, another is weight. And the other is how they operate and how they're constructed. So the Spirit of Innovation was a 1972 architecture blimp, big helium bag, 2 ballonets, which are big bags inside for air, basically a big balloon. If you let all the helium out, flattened out. The new blimps are airships. They have a rigid structure. You let all the helium out, you can still see the shape of the airship because it actually has a circular frame, runs the whole length of the craft. This provides a lot more structure, the ability to have a bigger bag, therefore more load carry capability, therefore a bigger blimp. So if you look at this picture here, we have comparison between the Spirit of Innovation, a blimp, and Wingfoot 2, which is now out at Carson, an airship. Without going into specifics, Wingfoot is about 50 feet longer. It has a frame of graphite carbon structure, aluminum structure. It has a gondola that can handle a crew of 2, and I believe it's a dozen people, 16 total, yeah. Plus it actually has a toilet in the gondola, believe it or not. It's like an airplane. The old Goodyear blimp could handle about 6 people, and it was made out of aluminum, and it was heavy. When Goodyear took these blimps apart, they decided that they should cut them up, give the pieces to various museums around the country. We were fortunate enough to get the gondola for about 6 months before it was taken back to Akron, Ohio for the Goodyear Museum. We have the nose cap up on the wall here, the rudder here behind me, the mooring mast down on the floor, the headstone, head cap back here in the corner. And we have some other pieces which aren't on display. Bits of the skin with the LED panel on it. We have a propeller from one of the 2 engines. We have a propeller guide basket which protects the balloon from the propeller blade. We have one of the helium valves and one of the air valves. And we also have an inspection port ballonet which goes inside the air balloon so you can look inside the blimp from inside of the gondola. Those are not on display right now, but we do have them. Primarily, another difference between a blimp and an airship, a blimp is really a balloon. If you remember seeing, if you've been out to Carson when the blimp came down, you saw 2 long ropes trailing on the ground from the nose, and people were out there chasing it to grab those ropes and pull it down. That's how you bring a blimp to the ground. Airship can hover like a helicopter and land itself. It doesn't need a ground crew. They do use a mooring mast to hold it in place. It's usually a truck-mounted mast, much smaller than this one that's shown here for the Goodyear blimp. So an airship is a vast improvement over a blimp. The old blimp had something like 82,000 LEDs on its side. Each of those LEDs was a panel of about that big, 4-inch square with 4 LEDs in the corner. And you could put moving displays across it in multicolor. And it was called Eagle Vision, and it was innovation for its time. The new one has about 37,000 plus LEDs on rigid panels on the sides. It is so much better, you can put live video on that side of that airship. And they do that. So it's a vast improvement in overall technologies. This is the head cap that goes on the 32-foot mooring mast that is used to keep a blimp on the ground. You notice this thing it'll rotate, and I can't do it because it takes a power unit to rotate it this way. But once it's free moving, it will spin 360 and 180 And its purpose in life is to keep the blimp on the ground going into the wind as prevailing winds blow across it, just like a weather vane. The nose cap is mated to by the nose probe. And this is fairly heavy. It's a chunk of solid aluminum. It is part of the nose cap on the blimp, which we'll talk about later. This probe inserts in there, and it locks around that section, holds the blimp in place. The mast is 32 feet long, takes a crew of 8 to set it up. But once it's up, and once the blimp is mated, it's solid. It's not going anywhere. But it will swing in the wind. A 300-foot diameter circle is what's needed for one of the old Spirit of Innovation class blimps. Another interesting thing, the reason this is allowed to rotate up is if you have a big ground wind, you don't want to put pressure and force the blimp to be stable like this, because it will rupture. So it's allowed to kite. There are pictures of a Goodyear blimp that Goodyear has in a kiting position. We don't have that. I kind of tried to get one, couldn't find it. However, if you go on the internet, you can look up kiting blimps. You will find a U.S. Navy Zeppelin standing on its nose. It's a very interesting picture to see a blimp like that. Doesn't normally happen, but this piece of equipment is what keeps it from destroying the aircraft. We talked about the mooring mast, and we'll get back to that in a minute. This is the rudder of the Spirit of Innovation. One of the other pieces of structure on that blimp. There's really only three: the rudder, the gondola, and the nose cap. But the rudder provides stability and direction because it is a real rudder like an aircraft rudder. There's also a small tail wheel on the bottom so that when they come down, if they come down aft heavy, they don't slam the bottom of the blimp into the ground. It hits a tail wheel and drags. There's a large landing wheel on the bottom of the gondola. Blimps are unique because they can't really steer very well. So you need something like a rudder. The new airships have vectoring engines. The entire engines will move. So their rudder is fixed. It's just a fin, and it's a Y fin, like that. Up above the rudder, you're going to see the nose cap. The nose cap has hanging down from it 2 ropes. Those 2 ropes are the landing ropes that people would chase on the ground to grab the blimp and pull it in. Don't have to do that with an airship. Additionally, if you remember, we had a nose probe that goes into the head cap. If you look real close up there, you will see the nose probe in the center of the cap. Also, you'll see these tubes radiating outward from the cap. Those are the mounting tubes for the battens that start at the nose cap and go part of the way around the side of the blimp, sort of like this. That's what gives the blimp a balloon shape, a football shape, because that forms the balloon at the front. In addition, that's the third piece of major structure, and it holds that docking probe so that when the blimp slams and locks into the headpiece, it is attached firmly.